Admiral William Carter stood by the large window on his ship, the ESS Vengeance. His gray eyes looked out at the stars and the huge space station ahead. The station was called the Galactic Concord. It looked like a giant wheel with spokes all lit up against the darkness of space. Carter was 57 years old. His black hair had streaks of silver. The lines on his face showed years of hard choices. He watched as a small ship flew toward the station. That ship carried Earth's best diplomats. 20 years ago, humans had joined the Galactic Council. The Council had 17 alien species who ruled known space. Humans were the newest members. They had worked hard, fought in the Council's wars, and shared their ideas. Now Earth wanted to be a full member with all rights. Ambassador Samantha Reed led the team on the small ship. She was going to ask for Earth to get a vote on the High Council. She would also ask for access to advanced alien technologies that only the oldest council members had. "Any word from the ambassador?" Carter asked. Officer Ryan Garcia shook his head. "Nothing since they docked, sir." Carter nodded. He didn't like the silence. The talks had been going well for weeks. Why would communications stop now? The large screen on the bridge lit up. Lieutenant Olivia Martinez's face appeared. She was part of Reed's security team. Her face was dirty and there was blood on her cheek. "Admiral, the Council has betrayed us," she shouted. Sounds of fighting came from behind her. "They voted to call humans a danger to galactic peace. They're killing the diplomatic team." Carter's body went cold. "What are you saying, Lieutenant?" "It was all planned, sir," Martinez said, ducking as something exploded nearby. "They never meant to accept us as equals. They used us to fight their wars and steal our ideas. Now they plan to wipe us out before we get too strong." Martinez held up a small device. "I'm sending you the Council's secret files. They're attacking all human colonies and Earth at the same time. A bright flash filled the screen. Then it went dark. The bridge was silent. Carter gripped the rail in front of him until his knuckles turned white. "Sir," Garcia said quietly. "Data transfer complete." "Put it on screen," Carter ordered. The main screen filled with alien text that quickly changed to English. Everyone on the bridge read in horror. The Council had voted 14-3 to eliminate all humans from the galaxy. They called it preventive action against a destabilizing element. The plan showed attack coordinates for Earth and every human colony. "They're sending ships to kill billions of people," said Dr. Laura Wells, who stood at a console nearby. Her voice shook. "Men, women, children, everyone." Carter looked at the tactical display. Small dots showed Council ships moving toward human worlds. "How long have we got?" he asked Commander Stephen Hall, his tactical officer. "The closest Council fleet is 8 hours from Earth," Hall said. "Others are between 10 and 15 hours from our colonies." Carter nodded slowly. Then he straightened his back and turned to face his crew. "Send emergency code Alpha to all Earth forces," he ordered. "All ships to battle stations. Contact the planetary defense systems on all colonies, and get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command." The bridge burst into activity as officers carried out his orders. Captain Natalie Reeves entered the bridge. "Admiral, what's happening?" "The Council has shown its true face, Captain," Carter said. "They're moving to wipe us out, all of us." Reeves' eyes widened. "After 20 years of peace? Why?" Dr. Wells looked up from the data files. "Fear. According to these records, they've been studying us for years. They think we're advancing too. Quickly. They believe if they wait another decade, we might be strong enough to challenge them. So they decided to kill us all," Carter said flatly, "before we become a problem." The main screen changed to show General Alan Foster at Earth Defense Command. His face was grim. "Bill, tell me the reports we're getting aren't true," Foster said. "They're true, Alan," Carter replied. "The Council voted to eliminate humanity. Their fleets are already moving toward our worlds." Foster closed his eyes briefly. "God help us. The planetary shields aren't ready on half our colonies." "Then we need to buy them time," Carter said. "How many ships can we gather?" "If we pull everything we have, about 300 vessels," Foster said. "But they'll be scattered. It will take time to form a united fleet." Carter looked at the tactical display again. An idea began to form. The Council thinks we'll try to defend our worlds, he said slowly. They expect us to spread our forces thin, trying to protect each colony. That's standard procedure, Foster agreed. Then we do the unexpected, Carter said. We gather every ship we have, but not to defend. Foster leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Bill? The Council betrayed us when we trusted them, Carter said. They think we're weak and predictable. I say we show them how wrong they are. He pointed to the Galactic Concord on the display. We take the fight to them, Alan. One massive strike at the heart of the Council. If we control the Concord, we control the central communication network for all Council forces. That's a hell of a gamble, Foster said. If we spread our ships out, we'll lose anyway, Carter said firmly. This way, we have a chance. For a long moment, Foster was silent. Then he nodded. I'll convince the Security Council. All ships will rendezvous at your position in 6 hours. After Foster's image disappeared, Carter turned to his crew. The Council thinks humanity is easy prey, he said. They've studied our technology and our tactics, but they've missed something important about humans. What's that, sir? Asked Captain Reeves. Carter's eyes were hard as steel. When cornered, we don't cower. We fight back, and we never forget those who betrayed us. He looked back at the Galactic Concord, peaceful and bright against the blackness of space. All hands to battle stations, he ordered. Prepare to receive the Earth fleet. In 6 hours, we show the Council why betraying humanity was the biggest mistake they ever made. In ships across human space, men and women prepared for war. Not a war they had wanted, not a war they had started, but a war they would finish. The Council had betrayed humanity's trust. Earth's fleet would make sure they lived just long enough to regret it. 6 hours passed quickly. Ships from all over human space arrived near the ESS Vengeance. First came the nearby patrol ships, then the colony defense vessels. Finally, the heavy warships from Earth joined them. Admiral Carter watched from the bridge as the fleet grew. He had never seen so many human ships in one place. Nearly 300 vessels of all sizes formed a massive group in space. From huge dreadnoughts to small, fast attack ships, Earth had sent everything it had. All ships have arrived, Admiral, said Captain Reeves. The fleet is ready. Carter nodded. Put me through to all ships. When the communication channel opened, Carter spoke clearly. This is Admiral Carter. 20 years ago, humanity joined. The Galactic Council in peace, we fought their wars, we shared our knowledge, we trusted them. He paused. Today, they betrayed that trust. The Council has voted to wipe out our entire species. The bridge was silent as he continued. They believe we are weak. They think we will scatter our forces to defend our colonies, making us easy to defeat. His voice grew stronger. We will prove them wrong. Instead of defending, we attack. We will strike at the heart of their power, the Galactic Concord itself. Dr. Laura Wells stood nearby, studying the data taken from the Council. Admiral, she said quietly, I've found something interesting in their files. Carter finished his speech and closed the channel. What is it, Doctor? Wells pointed to her screen. The Council racers have been studying us for years. They've been collecting human DNA samples and conducting experiments. What kind of experiments? Captain Reeves asked. Genetic research, Wells said. They seem fascinated by human adaptability. According to these records, humans evolve and adapt faster than any species they've encountered. Carter frowned. That's why they fear us? Because we adapt quickly? Partly, Wells said. But there's more. Most Council races were guided in their evolution by older species. Humans are one of the few races that evolved naturally. They don't understand us, and that scares them. Commander Hall joined them at the tactical display. The Concord station has activated its defense grid, he reported. Their fleet is forming, a protective barrier around it. How many ships? Carter asked. About 500, Hall said, but most are smaller than ours. Their main strength is in their defense platforms, over 100 of them surrounding the station. Carter studied the display. The Council forces outnumbered them, but he had expected that. What about our secret weapons? Hall smiled slightly. Ready, sir. The Council doesn't know about our adaptive shield technology or the quantum disruption. Torpedoes. And Captain Morgan's stealth ships are in position. Captain Patricia Morgan commanded a special group of Earth ships. They had experimental cloaking technology that made them invisible to standard sensors. While the main Earth fleet had gathered openly, Morgan's ships had slipped behind the Council's defensive line. Time to move, Carter decided. Signal, Captain. Morgan. Her team strikes first, targeting their command centers. Then we hit them with everything we have. The Earth fleet began to move forward. On the Vengeance, Carter watched as his ships formed into attack groups. The Council had studied human battle tactics for years. They expected humans to use standard approaches. Carter planned to surprise them. Enemy fleet is responding, Hall reported. They're moving to intercept. Any communication attempts? Carter asked. Garcia shook his head. Nothing, sir. They're maintaining communication silence. They don't feel the need to talk to a species they plan to exterminate, Dr. Wells said quietly. The first shots of the battle came from behind the Council lines. Captain Morgan's hidden ship suddenly appeared, firing at the defense platforms. 6 platforms exploded before the Council forces even realized they were under attack. Main fleet, advance, Carter ordered. The Earth ships surged forward. Instead of attacking as one group, they split into smaller units that approached from different angles. The Council ships tried to adjust but seemed confused by the unexpected tactics. They're trying to predict our movements, Hall said, watching. The enemy ships shift positions. Their battle computers are failing because we're not using standard patterns. The Council ships fired their weapons. Beams of energy and glowing projectiles flew toward the human fleet. On many Earth ships, the new adaptive shields activated. Instead of just blocking the energy, they bent it around the ships or reflected it back. First wave of torpedoes fire, Carter ordered. From the larger Earth ships, special torpedoes launched toward the Council fleet. These weapons used quantum technology to partially phase through normal space. They passed right through the Council's shields and exploded against their hulls. Direct hits on 20 enemy vessels, Hall reported with satisfaction. They're breaking formation. On his private channel, Carter received a message from Captain Morgan. Admiral, my team has disabled their main communication hub. The Council ships can't coordinate their defense anymore. Good work, Captain, Carter replied. Begin Phase 2. Morgan's stealth ships now targeted the engines of the larger Council vessels, leaving them drifting and unable to maneuver. Meanwhile, the main Earth fleet pressed its attack. Several Council ships broke away from the battle, fleeing toward the jump points that would take them to safety. Others fought desperately, but without central coordination, they couldn't match the Earth fleet's disciplined assault. Sir, Garcia called out, we're receiving a transmission from the Concord station. It's the Council itself. Put it through, Carter said. The main screen showed an alien with blue skin and large eyes. It was a Zolthid, one of the oldest Council races. This is High Counselor Zara, the alien said. Cease your attack immediately. There has been a misunderstanding. Carter's face showed no emotion. There is no misunderstanding, Counselor. We have your files. We know about the vote. We know you plan to destroy our species today. We can negotiate, Zara insisted. We will reconsider Earth's status. You had 20 years to treat us as equals, Carter replied. Instead, you plotted our extinction. Now you will face the consequences. He cut the transmission and turned to his officers. They're stalling for time. Their reinforcements must be on the way. What are your orders, sir? Reeves asked. Carter looked at the tactical display. The Earth fleet had punched through the Council's defenses. The path to the station was open. All ships, continue the attack, he ordered. Target the station's main docking bays and power centers. We're taking the Concord. The Earth fleet moved forward as one, leaving the broken Council ships behind them. Ahead lay the Galactic Concord, the heart of the government that had betrayed humanity, and Earth's vengeance was just beginning. The Earth fleet moved toward the Galactic Concord station. The massive space structure grew larger in the view screens. Its outer ring had many docking bays and long spokes connected to a central hub. That central hub housed the council chambers where the vote to destroy humanity had taken place. All ships target your assigned sectors, Admiral Carter ordered. Remember, we want to capture the station, not destroy it. The ESS Vengeance led the attack. Behind it came 3 other large battleships. Smaller, faster ships flew alongside, them drawing fire from the station's defense weapons. Inside the station, panic spread. Many aliens who worked there had never expected to see war. The Council had told everyone that humans were weak and would be easily defeated. Now Earth's fleet was at their doorstep, after smashing through their defenses. "Sir, we're receiving multiple surrender signals from the station," said Ryan Garcia from his communication console. "Ignore them," Carter replied. "The Council members are the only ones I want to hear from." Dr. Wells stood nearby, still studying the Council's secret files. Her eyes widened. "Admiral, I found something important." She moved to Carter's side. "The Council didn't just fear our adaptability, they were jealous of it." "Jealous?" Carter asked. Wells nodded. "According to these records, several Council races have reached their evolutionary limit. They can't develop further naturally. But humans are still evolving." She pointed to a section of data. "They've been secretly taking human DNA for years, trying to incorporate our genetic traits into their own species." "Human experimentation," Carter said, his voice cold. "Another crime to add to their list?" The ship shook as a defensive blast hit their shields. Commander Hall called out from tactical minor damage to decks 4 and 5, shields holding at 80%. Carter turned back to the battle. "Captain Reeves, take your strike team and prepare for boarding. I want control of the main systems." "Yes, Admiral," Reeves replied. She left the bridge to join the soldiers, who would capture the station. On the tactical display, Carter watched as Earthships fired precisely at the station's defense turrets and shield generators. One by one, the station's defenses failed. Meanwhile, Captain Morgan's stealth ships had already attached to the underside of the station, out of sight from the main defenses. "Morgan's team has breached the lower levels," Hall reported. "They're moving toward the station's power core. Tell them to secure it but not shut it down yet," Carter ordered. Dr. Wells looked troubled. "Admiral, these files show that 3 council races opposed the vote to destroy humanity. The Araxians, the Nomuri, and the Castellans." "Too little, too late," Carter said. "They still let it happen." The bridge doors opened and a young officer rushed in. "Admiral, we've decoded more of the Council's battle plans," she said, handing him a datapad. "They have reinforcements coming from 6 different systems." Carter studied the information. "Earliest arrivals in 2 hours. We need to have control of the station by then." He looked up. "Send this to all ship commanders. We need to hurry." The Vengeance moved closer to the station. Now they could see damage to the outer sections where the fighting was heaviest. Several docking bays were on fire, with air and debris venting into space. "Sir, Captain Morgan reports the power core is secure," Hall said. "And Captain Reeves has landed her team at docking bay 12. "Tell Reeves to move to the council chambers," Carter ordered. "I want those council members in custody." Garcia turned from his console. "Admiral, we're being hailed again. It's from a different council member this time." The main screen showed a tall, thin alien with reddish skin. "I am Counselor Drell of the Araxians," it said. "Please cease your attack. My people voted against the extinction plan." "Yet you did nothing to warn us," Carter replied. "You allowed preparations for genocide to continue." "We were outvoted," Drell said. "The others threatened us with isolation if we interfered. But I can help you now. I can give you control codes for the station's systems." Carter considered this. "Send the codes. If they work, we'll remember that the Araxians tried to help in the end." The codes came through, and Commander Hall verified them. "They're genuine. Sir, we now have access to the station's security systems." "Shut down all internal defenses," Carter ordered, "and locate the council members." Using the station's own systems, they found that most council representatives had fled to escape pods, or personal ships. But 5 members, including High Counselor Zara, were barricaded in a secure room near the council chambers. "Captain Reeves, adjust your target," Carter said through the comm. Secure that room and those council members." 20 minutes later, Reeves reported back. "Admiral, we have them. 5 council members in custody, including Zara. Bring them to the council chambers," Carter said. "I'm coming aboard." Carter left the Vengeance with a security team. They took a shuttle to the now secured docking bay. Inside the station, they saw signs of fighting. Walls were scorched by weapons fire. Some areas had no gravity or air, requiring them to wear spacesuits. They reached the council chambers, a large circular room with a round table in the center. Screens on the walls showed views of different worlds. Captain Reeves waited there with her team, guarding the 5 captured council members. "Admiral on deck," Reeves called when Carter entered. Carter nodded to Reeves, then turned to face the aliens who had voted to destroy his species. "I am Admiral William Carter of Earth," he said. "Your plan to exterminate humanity has failed." High Counselor Zara spoke, her large blue eyes showing no remorse. "You have won a battle, human, but the Council has ruled this galaxy for 2,000 years. When our reinforcements arrive, your victory will be short. Your reinforcements will find a different situation than the one they expect," Carter said. He walked to the council table and placed his hand on it. "This station now belongs to Earth, and from this position we control the communication network that links all council forces." Zara's confidence faltered. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that we've already sent orders using your authentication codes," Carter explained. "Orders recalling council ships from their attacks on human worlds. Many captains think those orders come from you." One of the other council members, a reptilian alien, hissed, "You cannot hope to control the council. You are one species against many." "Perhaps," Carter said, "but we're a species you should not have betrayed." He turned to Reeves. "Take them to the holding cells. We have work to do before the reinforcements arrive." As the guards led the council members away, Dr. Wells entered the chamber. "Admiral, I've found the complete database of the council's experiments on humans. It's worse than we thought." Carter's face hardened. "Download everything. When this is over, they'll answer for every crime they've committed against humanity." He walked to the large window that showed the space battle outside. Earth ships now surrounded the station protectively. The broken remains of the council fleet drifted nearby. "Send a message to Earth," Carter told Garcia, who had joined them. "The Conquered has fallen. Humanity now controls the center of galactic government." The first phase of humanity's response to betrayal was complete. But the real challenge was just beginning. 2 hours passed. Earth forces worked quickly to secure the Galactic Conquered station. They set up defense positions at all docking bays. They took control of the weapon systems. Captain Morgan's team made sure the power core was well protected. "Admiral," Carter stood in what had been the Council's private meeting room. Now it was his command center. Screens around him showed the status of Earth's fleet and the station itself. "Reinforcement fleet detected," Commander Hall announced. "Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Carter nodded. He had been expecting this. "How many?" 230 ships, Hall said, mostly from the Zaltid and Verax systems. The incoming fleet was smaller than Earth's, but they didn't know that yet. They expected to find a council fleet in control of the station. Instead, they would find Earth ships waiting for them. "Open a channel," Carter ordered. When the communication link was active, Carter spoke clearly. "This is Admiral William Carter of Earth. The Galactic Conquered is now under human control. Your council leaders are our prisoners. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." There was a long silence. Then a voice responded. "This is Fleet Commander Dex of the Zaltid Defense Force. We do not recognize your authority. Return control of the station to the Council immediately." "The Council no longer exists," Carter replied. "They lost their right to rule when they voted to exterminate humanity." Commander Hall looked up from his console. "Sir, they're forming attack positions." Carter had expected this too. "Activate the station's defense grid, target their command ships first, and launch our fleet." Earth ships moved from their positions around the station. They formed a protective barrier between the station and the incoming fleet. At the same time, the station's powerful weapon systems, now controlled by humans, powered up and targeted the enemy. Dr. Wells joined Carter at the main tactical display. "Admiral, I've been studying the station's database. The Council has contingency plans for this situation." "What kind of plans?" Carter asked. "If the station falls to an enemy, they have secret weapons hidden in nearby systems," Wells explained. "Weapons that could destroy the station completely." Carter frowned. "Can we locate these weapons?" "I've found coordinates for 2 of them," Wells said. "I've already sent the information to Captain Reeves. Her ships are moving to neutralize them." The incoming fleet fired their first shots. Energy beams and missiles flew toward the station and Earth's ships. The battle had begun again. "Return fire," Carter ordered. "All ships engage according to plan." Earth forces had spent the last 2 hours preparing for this moment. They had studied the station's defensive capabilities. They had analyzed the Council's battle tactics. Now they used that knowledge against the reinforcement fleet. The station's weapons fired. Powerful energy beams struck the lead ships of the enemy fleet. Several exploded immediately. Others broke formation, trying to avoid the unexpected attack. Earth ships moved in coordinated groups using tactics the Council races had never seen before. They targeted the larger enemy vessels, disabling their engines and weapons. "Sir," Garcia called from his communication station, "we're receiving transmissions from several ships in the enemy fleet. They're asking for information about what happened. Here." "Send them the evidence," Carter said. "Send them the Council's own files showing their plan to destroy humanity. Let them see the betrayal for themselves." As the battle continued, something unexpected happened. 3 ships from the reinforcement fleet broke away from the others. Instead of attacking, they moved to a neutral position. "Admiral," Garcia said, "those 3 ships are from the Araxian fleet. They're offering to stand down and discuss a peaceful resolution." Carter remembered what Dr. Wells had told him. The Araxians had voted against humanity's extinction. Maybe some allies could be found among the Council races after all. "Tell them we'll talk after the battle," Carter replied. For now, they need to stay clear. The fight was fierce but shorter than the first battle. The Earth fleet had the advantage of surprise and better position. The station's powerful weapons gave them an edge the reinforcement fleet couldn't match. After 30 minutes of combat, half the enemy ships were disabled or destroyed. The rest began to retreat. "They're pulling back," Hall reported. "All remaining enemy vessels are jumping to faster than light speed." Carter nodded. "Let them go. They'll spread the word about what happened here." He turned to Dr. Wells. "What's the status of those secret weapons?" "Captain Reeves reports that both have been neutralized," Wells said. "They were automated missile platforms designed to target the station's power core." For the first time in hours, Carter allowed himself to relax slightly. The immediate danger had passed, but the real work was just beginning. "Open a channel to all Earth colonies and ships," he ordered. When the link was ready, Carter spoke. "This is Admiral Carter. Today, humanity faced extinction at the hands of those we thought were our allies. Instead of being destroyed, we have taken control of the Galactic Concord itself." He paused, looking around at the Council chamber where so many decisions affecting billions of lives had been made. "The old Council is finished. Their betrayal has cost them the right to govern, but we will not repeat their mistakes. We will not seek revenge against entire species for the actions of their leaders." Carter had been thinking about this moment since he first learned of the Council's betrayal. Humanity could choose to become what they had fought against, conquerors who ruled by fear, or they could create something better. Today, we begin building a new system of galactic governance, one based on respect, equality, and the right of all species to exist without fear. Those who join us will be welcomed as partners. Those who oppose us will find that humanity's resolve is unbreakable. Garcia ended the transmission, and Carter turned back to the tactical display. Earth ships now surrounded the station protectively. The broken remains of 2 Council fleets drifted nearby. General Foster's image appeared on the main screen. "Quite a speech, Bill," he said. "Earth's government has been meeting non-stop since your first report. They're ready to send diplomats to help establish this new order you're talking about." Carter nodded. We'll need them, and representatives from the colonies too. What about the council members you captured? Foster asked. They'll stand trial for their crimes, Carter said firmly. But not for revenge, for justice. The first phase of humanity's response to betrayal was complete. Now the harder work began, building something better from the ashes of what the Council had destroyed. 1 month passed since Earth forces took control of the Galactic Concord. The station had been renamed Unity to mark the beginning of a new era. The signs of battle had been repaired. The Council symbols had been replaced with a new emblem, showing Earth and stars. Admiral Carter stood in the observation room looking out at space. Ships from many worlds now docked at the station. Some were Earth vessels. Others belonged to alien races who had decided to work with the new human-led government. Captain Reeves entered the room. Admiral, the representatives have arrived for the first meeting. Carter nodded. Are all the invited species here? Most of them, Reeves replied. 32 different races have sent delegates. That's more than the old council ever had. They walked together to the large chamber that had once been the council meeting room. It had been redesigned with a circular arrangement of seats, all at the same level. The old council had placed its founding members on higher platforms than newer species, showing their unequal status. The new design showed that all species would have equal voices. As they entered, Carter saw the room filled with aliens of many shapes, sizes, and colors. Some were familiar from Earth's dealings with the Council. Others came from beyond Council, space, species that had avoided contact with the old government. The Araxians were there, their reddish skin and tall bodies easy to spot. Their actions during the battle had earned them a place as early allies. The Nomuri and Castellans had also joined, having opposed humanity's extinction. Several former Council races had sent representatives too, accepting restrictions on their power as they proved they could be trusted. Dr. Wells approached Carter. Admiral, the final reports on the Council's human experimentation are ready. Thank you, Doctor, Carter said quietly. Make sure every delegation receives a copy. They should know what the old Council was willing to do. The 5 captured Council members had been tried for crimes against humanity. The evidence from their own files had been overwhelming. High Counselor Zara and 2 others had been found guilty of planning genocide. They would spend the rest of their lives in a secure facility, on a distant moon. The other 2 council members had received shorter sentences, as evidence showed they had argued for less extreme measures. General Foster arrived, now representing Earth's government. Quite a crowd, Bill, he said, looking around the room. Never thought I'd see the day when humans would lead a galactic alliance. We're not leading it, Carter corrected him. We're founding it. There's a difference. He had been clear from the beginning that the new organization would not simply replace one set of rulers with another. Equal partnership is the only way this works. Some of Earth's politicians don't see it that way, Foster admitted. They think we should use our position to get special advantages. That kind of thinking is what led the old council to betray us, Carter said firmly. We won't repeat their mistakes. A chime sounded, signaling the start of the meeting. Carter moved to the central podium. The room grew quiet as he prepared to speak. Representatives of free worlds, he began. 1 month ago, the organization that called itself the Galactic Council betrayed the trust placed in it. They planned to destroy an entire species, humanity, simply because they feared what we might become. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of aliens with many different kinds of faces. Their plan failed. But in its failure, we found an opportunity to build something better. Not a council that rules through fear and inequality, but a union based on mutual respect and cooperation. Carter gestured to the data files that had been distributed. These files show what the old council was willing to do to maintain their power. They experimented on humans without consent. They restricted technology to keep newer species dependent. They planned genocide when their other methods failed. Many of the aliens looked disturbed as they reviewed the evidence. Even species that had been part of the council seemed shocked by the extent of their leaders' crimes. We could have responded with the same kind of fear and cruelty, Carter continued. We could have taken revenge against all council worlds. Instead, we choose a different path." He activated a large display in the center of the room. It showed the text of a new charter, the founding document for what would be called the Galactic Union. "This charter establishes a new relationship between our worlds," Carter explained. "One where no species can threaten another's existence, where technology and knowledge are shared equally, where disputes are resolved through discussion and compromise, not force." The charter established a rotating leadership, so no single species would dominate. It created a system where any 3-member worlds could call for review of decisions they felt were unfair. It guaranteed the right of all sentient beings to live without fear of extinction. "The old council believed that different species could not live as equals," Carter said. "They saw the universe as a competition where only the strongest deserved to survive. We reject that view. We believe the greatest strength comes from cooperation, not domination." Representatives began to discuss the charter, suggesting changes and asking questions. The meeting would last for days as they worked through the details, but the foundation was being laid for something that had never existed before, a true partnership of different worlds. Later, when the first day's session ended, Carter returned to the observation room. Dr. Wells joined him there. "Do you think it will work, Admiral?" she asked. "Can species as different as ours really work together as equals?" Carter watched as ships moved around the station against the backdrop of stars. "I believe we have to try," he said. "The alternative is endless. Cycles of fear and violence." Wells nodded. "The Council betrayed us because they were afraid of what humanity might become." She looked out at the stars. "Maybe what we're becoming is something they never imagined. The species that brings real peace to the galaxy." Earth's fleet had arrived, and left nothing standing of the old order. But from the ruins, something new and better was taking shape. The betrayal that was meant to end humanity had instead created an opportunity for a new beginning, not just for Earth, but for all worlds willing to join them. The stars looked different now, not as distant, not as strange. The universe had changed, and humanity had changed with it. The journey ahead would not be easy. Old fears and prejudices would not disappear overnight. But the first step had been taken, and Admiral William Carter, who had led Earth's fleet in its darkest hour, now led the way toward a brighter future. Admiral Kira Vance stood alone on the observation deck of the UHS Retribution, the largest warship humanity had ever built. The lights were dim. She had ordered them that way. In the darkness, the holographic display floating before her seemed more real, more alive, more painful. She pressed a button on her wrist console, and Earth appeared. Not the dead Earth, not the broken Earth, the Earth from before, captured by a satellite 41 years ago on a quiet Tuesday morning. Blue oceans sparkled under white clouds. Green continents stretched across the globe like old friends waving hello. City lights glittered on the night side. Millions of lives going about their business, completely unaware of what was coming. Kira had watched this recording 10,000 times. Maybe more. She had memorized every cloud formation, every swirl of ocean current, every tiny detail. Her daughter had been down there somewhere, in a small apartment in Vancouver, probably making breakfast for her own children, Kira's grandchildren. She had never met them in person. She had been stationed on Mars when it happened, preparing for a routine patrol mission. She had promised to visit for Christmas. Christmas never came. She pressed another button, and the recording continued. The first Zorvathi ships appeared at the edge of the solar system at 0347 hours, Universal Standard Time. There were thousands of them, more ships than humanity had ever seen in one place. They moved with terrible purpose, ignoring the outer planets, ignoring the defense stations that fired uselessly at their hulls. They came straight for Earth like wolves hunting a wounded deer. The battle lasted 6 hours. Humanity threw everything it had at the invaders. Battleships, fighters, orbital defense platforms, nuclear missiles, kinetic impactors. None of it mattered. The Zorvathi technology was centuries ahead. Human weapons bounced off their shields like raindrops off a window. Human ships exploded by the hundreds, while Zorvathi vessels pushed forward without slowing. By hour 7, the defense fleet was gone. Scattered debris and frozen bodies drifted where proud warships had once stood guard. And then, the Zorvathi planet crackers moved into position. Kira watched the recording with dry eyes. She had no tears left. She had cried them all out decades ago. The planet crackers were massive vessels, each one the size of a small moon. They positioned themselves in a precise formation around Earth and began charging their weapons. It took 3 hours. 3 hours while 8 billion people watched the sky and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. 3 hours while emergency broadcasts told people to stay calm, to seek shelter, to hope for rescue that would never come. At 1,342 hours, the planet crackers fired. Beams of pure energy, brighter than the sun, struck Earth's surface at 12 different points. The oceans began to boil. The crust cracked open like an egg. Magma erupted from wounds that stretched across entire continents. The atmosphere caught fire. 17 hours later, Earth was gone. Not conquered, not occupied, gone. A field of molten rock and scattered debris where a living world had once existed. 8 billion people, reduced to atoms and memory. Kira ended the recording. The holographic Earth vanished, and she stood alone in the darkness. 41 years. For 41 years, she had carried this weight. For 41 years, she had lived with a hole in her chest where her heart used to be. For 41 years, she had worked toward one single purpose: revenge. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. She straightened her uniform and turned toward the door. Enter. The door slid open, and Commander Chen Wei stepped through. He was her second in command, a solid man in his 50s with gray hair and steady hands. He had been born on a refugee ship 3 months after Earth burned. He had never known a home world, never walked under an open sky without a helmet, never breathed air that wasn't recycled. But he had grown up on stories. Stories of green forests and blue oceans. Stories of cities full of laughter. Stories of everything humanity had lost. "Admiral," he said, his voice formal, "the fleet is assembled. All 900,000 ships report ready for departure. 900,000 warships." Kira let that number sink in. 40 years ago, the survivors of Earth's destruction had numbered just 12 million, scattered across colony ships, space stations, lunar bases, and Martian settlements. They were the last remnants of a species that had once dreamed of conquering the stars. In those early days, survival seemed impossible. Resources were scarce. Hope was scarcer. But humanity did not die. Humanity hid. Humanity grieved. And then humanity got angry. The Exodus Protocol had been a secret project, created by paranoid military planners who wanted a backup plan in case Earth ever fell to an alien invasion. Most people thought it was a waste of money, a fantasy scenario that would never happen. Those paranoid planners had saved the human race. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts, secret resource caches on distant moons, manufacturing templates stored in encrypted databases, everything humanity needed to rebuild, waiting in the darkness of space for survivors to find it. And find it they did. The first decade after Earth's destruction was about survival, finding food, water, shelter, keeping the population alive, keeping hope alive. The second decade was about growth, expanding the hidden colonies, increasing the population, building infrastructure. The third decade was about preparation, designing new weapons, training new soldiers, constructing warships by the thousands. The fourth decade was about one thing only: vengeance. Kira walked to the main viewport and looked out at the fleet. Ships stretched in every direction as far as she could see. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, dreadnoughts. Every single one of them carried the same inscription on its hull, painted in letters 10 meters tall. Remember Earth. These ships had been built by people who had never seen Earth except in recordings, crewed by men and women who had grown up in metal corridors and artificial gravity, who had never felt real rain on their faces or real wind in their hair. But they knew what had been taken from them. They knew who had taken it, and they were ready to take payment in blood. "What about the Zorvathi?" Kira asked. "Any movement on long-range sensors?" Commander Chen shook his head. "Nothing, Admiral. Their border patrols haven't changed position in months. They don't know we're coming." Kira allowed herself a small smile. The Zorvathi had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. They had seen a young species, barely capable of interstellar travel, and decided to wipe them out like insects. They had destroyed Earth and moved on, probably forgetting about humanity within a few years. After all, what threat could 12 million refugees possibly pose? They were about to find out. "Signal the fleet," Kira ordered. "We begin the jump sequence in 1 hour." Chen nodded and turned to leave, but hesitated at the door. "Admiral, may I speak freely?" "Always." He turned back to face her. "I've served under your command for 20 years. I've watched you sacrifice everything for this moment. Your health, your relationships, your peace of mind, and I've never once questioned whether it was worth it." He paused. "But now that we're actually here, I find myself wondering, after we destroy them, after we burn their worlds the way they burned ours, what then? What happens to us when the war is over?" Kira considered the question. It was a fair one. For 40 years, humanity had been united by a single purpose. Revenge had given them something to live for, something to fight for, something to build toward. Without that purpose, what would they become? She didn't know. And truthfully, she didn't care. "We'll figure that out after they're dead," she said. "One thing at a time, Commander. One thing at a time." Chen nodded slowly, accepting her answer even if he wasn't satisfied by it. He left the observation deck, and Kira was alone again. She returned her gaze to the fleet. Somewhere out there, in one of those hundreds of thousands of ships, young men and women were preparing for the mission of their lives. They were checking weapons, running diagnostics, writing letters to loved ones that might never be sent. They were scared and excited and determined, just like every soldier before every battle in the history of warfare. But this was not going to be a battle. Battles implied two sides fighting. This was going to be an extermination. Humanity had spent 40 years learning from their defeat, studying Zorvathi technology through captured fragments and intercepted signals, developing countermeasures and new weapons. The fleet that hung in space around her was not the same helpless collection of ships that had been swept aside on the day Earth burned. This fleet was a weapon of genocide, and Kira intended to use it. Her thoughts drifted to her daughter again. Maya had been 32 years old when she died. A school teacher with a husband and 2 children. She had always been the peaceful one in the family, the one who believed in talking through problems, in finding common ground, in giving people second chances. She would have hated what her mother had become, but Maya was dead. Her husband was dead. Her children were dead. 8 billion people were dead, and the ones who killed them were still alive, still breathing, still existing in a universe that no longer contained Earth. That was unacceptable. That was an imbalance in the cosmic scales that Kira intended to correct. The hour passed quickly. Kira made her way to the bridge, where her command crew was assembled and ready. The bridge of the Retribution was a massive circular room, filled with holographic displays and tactical stations. 200 officers worked at their posts, monitoring every aspect of the fleet's operation. Kira took her seat in the command chair at the center of the room. A holographic display materialized before her, showing the positions of all 900,000 ships. They were arranged in precise formations, each vessel knowing exactly where it needed to be and what it needed to do. "Fleet status?" she asked. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Chen responded from his station. "Jump drives are charged. Navigation coordinates are locked in. We are awaiting your order." Kira nodded. This was the moment. 40 years of preparation, 40 years of building, 40 years of waiting, all leading to this single instant. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. Her face appeared on screens in every ship, from the smallest fighter to the largest dreadnought. 900,000 vessels fell silent, waiting for their admiral to speak. "Soldiers of humanity," she began, her voice steady and strong. 41 years ago, we lost everything. Our home, our families, our future. 8 billion of our brothers and sisters died screaming while an alien empire watched and laughed. They thought they had destroyed us. They thought humanity was finished. She paused, letting her words sink in. They were wrong. We survived. We hid in the darkness, licked our wounds, and rebuilt. We took our grief and turned it into steel. We took our rage and turned it into weapons. And now, after 4 decades of preparation, we are ready to answer the crime that was committed against our species. The bridge crew listened in silence, their faces hard with determination. Today, we begin the final journey. Today, we sail for Zorvathi space, and when we arrive, we will show them what it means to murder a world. We will burn their cities, shatter their fleets, and turn their empire to ash. We will make them understand, in their final moments, that humanity is not a species to be trifled with. She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes burning with cold fire. They took Earth from us. We will take everything from them. Today, we balance the scales. Today, we make them pay. Today, we remember Earth and avenge her children. Across the fleet, soldiers cheered. The sound was picked up by communication systems and broadcast through the command network. A wave of fury and determination that washed over every ship. 40 years of grief and rage. Finally finding release, Kira waited for the cheering to subside, then gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. All ships, initiate jump sequence. Take us to war. The jump drives activated across the fleet. Space itself seemed to twist and tear as 900,000 vessels punched holes in reality and vanished into wormhole corridors. One moment, the fleet was there, a massive armada filling the void. The next moment, they were gone, leaving behind only empty space and the distant stars. The journey to Zorvathi space would take months. The route was dangerous, passing through unstable wormhole corridors that no sane species would attempt. But humanity was no longer sane. Humanity was patient, furious, and precise. Humanity was coming for blood, and nothing in the universe was going to stop them. In her quarters that night, Kira sat in darkness and looked at a small holographic photo. It showed a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile, standing in a garden full of flowers. Maya, on her wedding day, happy and hopeful and so impossibly alive. "I'm coming, sweetheart," Kira whispered to the image. "I'm going to make them pay for what they did to you. I promise. I promise." The photo smiled back at her, frozen forever in a moment of joy that would never come again. Outside, the fleet hurtled through twisted space, carrying 900,000 instruments of vengeance toward an enemy that did not know they were coming, carrying the last hope of a murdered species, carrying the fury of 8 billion ghosts who demanded justice. Earth would be remembered, Earth would be avenged, and the Zorvathi would learn, in fire and blood, the price of genocide. The war was just beginning. The journey through the wormhole corridors was like traveling through the throat of a living creature. Space twisted and bent in ways that hurt the eyes. Colors that should not exist flickered at the edges of vision. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress, making hours feel like days and days feel like minutes. Lieutenant Commander Dren Castillo stood at his tactical station on the bridge of the Retribution, monitoring the fleet's passage through the 37th wormhole corridor. His screens showed nothing but swirling chaos outside, but his instruments told him that all 900,000 ships were maintaining formation, moving as one toward their destination. Dren was 28 years old. He had been born on a generation ship called the Wanderer, 3 years after Earth's destruction. He had never seen a planet with his own eyes, never felt real gravity that wasn't generated by spinning habitats, never known anything but metal walls and recycled air and the burning need for revenge. His parents had been teenagers when Earth burned. They had watched the recordings together as children, sitting in crowded refugee holds while adults wept around them. They had grown up in the chaos of the early Exodus years, when survival was never certain and death was always close. And they had raised their son on stories. Stories of Earth. Stories of blue skies and green forests. Stories of oceans so vast you could not see the other side. Stories of cities full of people laughing, working, living their lives without fear of the void. And stories of the day when it all ended. The day when the Zorvathi came and took everything away. Dren had memorized those stories. He had made them part of his soul. He had never known Earth, but he loved it with a fierce devotion that surprised even himself. And he hated the Zorvathi with equal intensity. This mission was everything he had trained for his entire life. Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night studying tactical manuals and weapon systems, all of it had been building toward this moment. He was finally going to make the Zorvathi pay. He was finally going to avenge a world he had never seen. The wormhole corridor stabilized, and normal space returned. Stars appeared on the view screens, cold and distant and familiar. The fleet emerged from the corridor in perfect formation. Not a single ship lost to the chaotic passage. Jump complete, Dren reported. All ships accounted for. Initiating navigation check for Corridor 38. Admiral Vance nodded from her command chair. She looked tired, Dren noticed. Dark circles under her eyes. A tightness around her mouth that never seemed to relax. She had been pushing herself harder than anyone during the journey, sleeping only a few hours each night, spending most of her time studying intelligence reports and refining battle plans. Dren understood. For him, this mission was about avenging a concept, a world he knew only from recordings and stories. For the Admiral, it was personal. She had lost her daughter on Earth, her grandchildren, her entire life. The hatred that drove her was not abstract. It was carved into her bones. How many more jumps until we reach Zorvathi space? She asked. 90 more corridors, Admiral. At our current pace, approximately 4 more months. 4 months. It seemed like forever, but after 40 years of waiting, what was 4 more months? The Zorvathi would still be there. They would still be unprepared, and humanity would still be coming. In another section of the ship, Dr. Yuki Tanaka sat in her research laboratory, surrounded by screens filled with Zorvathi text and audio recordings. She was 63 years old, a xenoanthropologist who had spent her entire career studying an enemy she had never met face to face. Yuki had been born on Mars, one of the lucky few who had been off-world when Earth died. She remembered the day it happened. She had been 7 years old, playing in a garden dome when the adults started screaming and crying. She had not understood what was happening at first. How could a child understand that an entire world had just been erased from existence? But she had grown up in the aftermath. She had seen what grief and rage did to people. She had watched refugees tear themselves apart with hatred and despair, and she had decided, even as a young woman, that understanding was the first step toward healing. So she had dedicated her life to studying the Zorvathi, not to sympathize with them, not to forgive them, but to understand them. What kind of species could commit such an act? What motivated them? What drove them to destroy an entire world for no apparent reason? For decades, she had collected every scrap of information she could find. Intercepted communications, recovered artifacts, prisoner interrogations from the rare Zorvathi scouts that humanity captured. She had learned their language, studied their culture, analyzed their social structures, and over the years, she had begun to notice something strange. The Zorvathi were changing. In the early years after Earth's destruction, their communications had been triumphant. Celebrations of victory, plans for further expansion, discussions of future conquests. They had spoken of humanity the way a hunter might speak of a pest that had been exterminated. They had been proud of what they had done, but gradually, the tone had shifted. The triumphant broadcasts became less frequent. Reports of military operations became scattered and confused. Communications between Zorvathi worlds grew shorter, more desperate, more fearful. And then, about 15 years ago, they had nearly stopped entirely. Yuki had reported her findings to military intelligence multiple times. Something was wrong in the Zorvathi Empire. Something had changed. But no one wanted to hear it. The military was focused on revenge, not analysis. They did not care what was happening to the Zorvathi. They only cared about making them suffer. Now, as the fleet drew closer to Zorvathi space, Yuki's unease was growing. The most recent intercepted signals were deeply troubling. Distress calls that went unanswered. Pleas for help from isolated outposts. Automated emergency beacons repeating the same warning over and over. Quarantine in effect. Do not approach. Something was very wrong. And Yuki was afraid that when the fleet finally arrived at Zorvathi Prime, they would not find what they expected. She gathered her latest findings and made her way to the Admiral's ready room. It was time to make her concerns heard, whether anyone wanted to listen or not. Admiral Vance was reviewing tactical projections when the door chimed. She looked up, irritated at the interruption. Enter. Dr. Tanaka stepped through, clutching a data tablet to her chest like a shield. Vance knew the xenoanthropologist by reputation. Brilliant researcher, but too soft for military work, too focused on understanding the enemy rather than destroying them. Admiral, I apologize for interrupting, but I have information that I believe is critical to the mission. Vance leaned back in her chair. Then speak, Doctor. Quickly. Yuki took a deep breath and began. She explained her research, her decades of studying Zorvathi communications, the gradual changes she had observed. She showed Vance the data, the intercepted signals, the distress calls, the quarantine warnings. Something catastrophic has happened to the Zorvathi Empire, she concluded. I believe they may be in a state of collapse. We need to proceed with caution. We need to understand what we are sailing into before we commit to battle. Vance listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When Yuki finished, the Admiral sat motionless for a long moment. Let me understand, Vance said finally. You are suggesting that we slow down, that we hesitate, that we show caution toward the species that murdered 8 billion human beings. I am suggesting that we gather intelligence before. The Zorvathi showed no caution when they burned Earth, Vance interrupted, her voice cold. They did not hesitate. They did not try to understand us. They simply destroyed us. And now you want me to pause, to consider their feelings, to worry about what might be happening in their empire. Admiral, that's not what I have 900,000 ships filled with soldiers who have trained their entire lives for this mission. Their parents died on Earth. Their grandparents died on Earth. They have carried the weight of genocide for 40 years, and now they are finally going to have justice. Vance stood, her eyes burning with barely contained fury. I will not tell them to wait. I will not tell them to be careful. And I will not let your research, your sympathy for monsters undermine what we have built. I have no sympathy for them, Yuki said quietly. I lost family on Earth too. My grandmother, my aunts and uncles, cousins I never got to meet. I want justice as much as anyone, but justice requires understanding, and something is wrong with this mission. Something does not add up. Vance walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Your concerns are noted, Doctor. You may return to your research. But do not bring me speculation again. Bring me facts, or bring me nothing. Yuki wanted to argue, but she knew it would be pointless. The Admiral's mind was made up. The entire fleet's mind was made up. They had spent 40 years building toward this moment, and nothing was going to stop them now. She left the ready room and walked slowly back to her laboratory. The corridors of the Retribution were busy with crew members preparing for battle, checking weapons, running drills. Everyone she passed had the same look in their eyes. Determination, anticipation, hunger. These were not people who wanted to understand. These were people who wanted to kill. And Yuki could not blame them. She understood their rage. She shared it, deep in her heart, but understanding did not make her fear go away. Something was waiting for them at Zorvathi Prime, something that was not in any of their battle plans. And Yuki could not shake the feeling that when they found it, everything would change. The weeks passed slowly. The fleet continued its journey through wormhole corridor after wormhole corridor, drawing ever closer to Zorvathi space. Dren Castillo spent his time running combat simulations, drilling his tactical teams, preparing for every possible scenario. But there was one scenario no one had prepared for. One possibility that had never been included in the training programs or the strategic planning sessions. The possibility that when they finally arrived, there would be no enemy to fight. 3 months into the journey, the fleet encountered its first sign that something was wrong. A Zorvathi patrol vessel, drifting dead in space near the entrance to Corridor 92. Scans showed no life signs, no power readings. Nothing but a cold metal hull floating in the void. Admiral Vance ordered a boarding party to investigate. Marines in combat suits cut through the hull and entered the vessel, their helmet cameras broadcasting everything back to the Retribution. What they found was a ghost ship. The Zorvathi crew was dead. All of them, but not from combat. There were no weapon marks, no signs of battle. The Zorvathi soldiers were lying in their quarters, in the corridors, at their duty stations. They looked like they had simply stopped living. Dr. Tanaka analyzed the medical data transmitted by the Marines. The Zorvathi had died from some kind of disease, a virus or bacteria that had killed them quickly and painfully. Judging by the positions of the bodies, they had suffered before the end. This is consistent with the quarantine warnings I've been tracking, Yuki reported to the Admiral. Some kind of plague has spread through the Zorvathi population. This ship must have been caught in the infected zone. Vance studied the images on her screen. Dead Zorvathi. Rotting bodies. The enemy reduced to corpses without humanity lifting a finger. It could be a trap, Commander Chen suggested. A bioweapon designed to infect our boarding parties. Possible, Vance agreed. Pull our people out and destroy the vessel. We continue on schedule. The Marines evacuated, and the Retribution's weapons reduced the ghost ship to atoms. The fleet moved on, leaving nothing behind but debris and questions. But the ghost ship was not the last. As they drew closer to Zorvathi space, they found more. Dozens of vessels, drifting and dead. Space stations, dark and silent. Communication relays, still broadcasting automated messages to no one. The messages were the same. Quarantine warnings, distress calls, pleas for help that would never be answered. Dren watched the boarding party footage from each vessel, seeing the same horror repeated over and over. Dead Zorvathi, empty ships, an empire dying in silence. He should have been happy. These were the creatures that had destroyed Earth. They deserved to suffer. They deserved to die. But something about the scale of it disturbed him. Something about finding an enemy already broken, already defeated by something other than human weapons. It felt wrong. It felt like their revenge was being stolen. He pushed the thought aside. It did not matter how the Zorvathi died. What mattered was that humanity would be the one to finish them off. What mattered was that someone would be there to watch their final moment, to make sure they knew who had come for them and why. The fleet made its final jump. The last wormhole corridor twisted and roared around them, and then they emerged into real space at the edge of the Zorvathi home system. Dren's tactical screens lit up with contacts, thousands of them, ships everywhere, clustered around the planets, filling the void between worlds. "Contact!" he shouted. "Multiple contacts across all sectors. I'm reading." He stopped. He stared at his screens, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Lieutenant Commander?" Admiral Vance's voice was sharp. "Report." Dren looked up, his face pale. "Admiral, the contacts. They're not moving. None of them are moving. They're all drifting. Dark. Dead." Silence fell over the bridge. Every officer stared at their screens, seeing the same thing. Thousands of Zorvathi warships, floating lifelessly in space. No power signatures, no life signs, no threats. Admiral Vance rose from her chair and walked slowly to the main viewport. Before her stretched the Zorvathi home system, the heart of the empire that had destroyed Earth. It should have been a fortress, bristling with weapons, defended by the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. Instead, it was a graveyard. "Launch reconnaissance drones," she ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to know what happened here. I want to know everything." The drones spread out through the system, transmitting images back to the fleet. Warships, cold and dead. Orbital stations, dark and empty. And at the center of it all, Zorvath Prime itself, the planet that had ordered Earth's destruction, the throne world of an interstellar empire, the target of humanity's 40-year quest for vengeance. It was still there. It was still intact. But something was terribly, terribly wrong. Admiral Vance stared at the planet that should have been her enemy's final stronghold. 900,000 warships waited behind her, weapons armed and ready, crews hungry for battle. But there was no battle to fight. There was no enemy to destroy. There was only silence and death, and the terrible realization that something had stolen humanity's revenge. "What happened here?" Commander Chen whispered, voicing the question that echoed through every ship in the fleet. No one had an answer. Not yet. But they were going to find out. The fleet moved forward, into the graveyard of giants, searching for answers in a dead empire. And with every passing moment, the weight of 40 years of preparation pressed down harder on Admiral Vance's shoulders. They had come to destroy the Zorvathi. But someone, or something, had beaten them to it. The question was, what? The reconnaissance drones spread across the Zorvathi home system like seeds scattered by the wind. They darted between dead warships, circled silent space stations, descended through the atmosphere of Zorvath Prime. And everywhere they went, they found the same thing. Death, silence, emptiness. Admiral Kira Vance watched the footage from her command chair, her face carved from stone. The tactical displays that should have shown enemy positions and threat assessments instead showed nothing but debris fields and drifting hulks. The weapon systems that should have been targeting Zorvathi warships sat idle, their crews waiting for orders that made no sense anymore. "Initial reports coming in from the surface teams," Commander Chen announced. "Admiral, you need to see this." The main view screen shifted to show footage from a Marine reconnaissance squad. They were walking through a Zorvathi city, their boots echoing on empty streets. Buildings towered on either side, their architecture alien and imposing. But their windows were dark. Vehicles sat abandoned where their drivers had left them. Doors hung open, swinging gently in the wind. And everywhere, there were bodies. Not fresh bodies. These Zorvathi had been dead for years, maybe decades. Their remains were scattered throughout the city, lying in doorways and on sidewalks and slumped over control consoles. The plague that had killed them had struck quickly, giving them no time to organize, no time to fight back. They had simply fallen where they stood and never gotten up again. God, someone on the bridge whispered. What happened to them? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The Marine squad continued through the city, documenting everything. Hospitals overflowing with corpses, government buildings where officials had died at their desks, schools where teachers and students had perished together. The scale of the death was almost impossible to comprehend. And this was just one city. The drones were reporting similar scenes across the entire planet, across the entire system, across what had once been the mightiest empire in the known galaxy. The Zorvathi were gone. Not defeated, not conquered. Gone. A civilization of over 200 billion beings, reduced to ruins and bones. Admiral Vance turned to Dr. Tanaka, who was watching the footage with tears streaming down her face. The xenoanthropologist had spent her career studying the Zorvathi from a distance. Now she was seeing them up close for the first time, and they were all dead. Doctor, Vance said, her voice flat. I need answers. What killed them? Yuki wiped her eyes and pulled up her analysis on a datapad. Based on the preliminary medical scans, it appears to be a biological agent, a virus or bacterium specifically engineered to target Zorvathi physiology. Extremely lethal, extremely contagious. It would have spread through their population like wildfire. A bioweapon, Commander Chen said. Someone attacked them with a bioweapon. Yes, but the question is who? Yuki hesitated, then continued. Admiral, I've been analyzing the genetic structure of the pathogen. It's not natural. It was definitely engineered. And the engineering signatures match Zorvathi biotechnology. Vance stared at her. You're saying they did this to themselves? I'm saying the weapon